53-year-old Rose Mashimbi has been operating in this corner for over 2 decades, a stone throw away from Luthuli House, the governing ANC's headquarters. When these ANC offices were relocated here from elsewhere, she had already been managing her small business. Mashimbi is from another province. She came to Gauteng, South Africa's economic hub, to seek a better life for her and her family. She tells us that at first her fortunes were good. She made sufficient money to take her 5 children through school. Mashimbi invested in her children's education, hoping that they will in turn take care of her. But the past few years have put a strain on Mashimbi and her family.
Rose Mashimbi says the past 8 to 9 years have been particularly difficult for her and her family. 4 of her children are unemployed. She says she's hoping that whatever changes in government will bring in new opportunities.
We are poor. I've had to take care of all my children through school. We work right here. All of these ANC presidents found me here. Some were better, but they all left me here. I don't want to even mention the past few years. It's been so hard.
There are myriads of people like Mashimbi in this country who complain about Zuma's presidential tenure. Throughout his presidency, Zuma has faced mounting pressure for him to step down, both from opposition political parties and civil society. He has also survived numerous votes of no confidence against him. Zuma's presidential span has been dogged by corruption allegations. He's consistently denied all of them. Some analysts believe that Zuma's presidency saw the destruction of state-owned entities, escalating deep corruption practices, and the regression of the nation-building project. But his credibility was most dented in March 2016. This was when South Africa's highest court ruled that he violated the constitution by failing to repay the government for money used on upgrading his private residence. Zuma has apologized to South Africans and has since repaid the money.
I never knowingly or deliberately set out to violate the constitution.
But there's also been some successes during Zuma's reign. These include a fight against the scourge of HIV and AIDS. After years of indecisiveness by former President Thabo Mbeki, Zuma oversaw a successful and life-saving extension of HIV and AIDS medication and treatment. Life expectancy has since increased as a result. The Zuma presidency has also been credited with widening access to schools and colleges. But for some South Africans like Rose Mashimbi, any change from the Zuma presidency would be good and most welcome. They're hoping change will bring back good fortunes.
I hope anyone who comes knows that as people, we need help from our government. I can't stay here forever. My children now have to have jobs and feed me.
Yolisa and Njamela, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Well, the political developments in South Africa have certainly grabbed the attention of many around the world. Let's get you more perspective on that. I'm joined live in studio here in Nairobi by Dr. Adams Olo, a political scientist and analyst with the University of Nairobi. Doctor, thanks for your time. Now, indeed, South Africans have been at the edge of their seats over the past 10 days or so. But how closely have African nations been watching these developments in South Africa, and just how significant are they for the continent?
Definitely, when you look at South Africa, it's one of the big powers, both economically, politically, and militarily, and therefore Africa must be watching, especially the SADC countries that usually rely on South Africa to give them direction, both economically and security-wise. But I also think that the rest of Africa is watching because as an African continent, you always rely on some countries to show direction, and in this case it has always been South Africa and Nigeria. So any issue that affects the leadership of a country as big as South Africa will definitely draw attention.
Now, of course, Jacob Zuma has been at the helm of the country, as it were, for the past decade. What's your take on his Africa interactions and his Africa policies?
Well, I think that compared to previous South African leaders, in this case Nelson Mandela and Thabo Mbeki, then one would say that Jacob Zuma has not left what you can call a rich legacy. If you look at Nelson Mandela, he was associated with humanity, liberation struggles, and the like. If you look at Thabo Mbeki, he together with Olusegun Obasanjo of Nigeria, are credited with the new Partnership for African Development and African Peer Review Mechanism. If you look at Jacob Zuma, you can say that there's not very much. Of course, South Africa has remained a powerhouse, but you look at his tenure, you find that there has been an economic meltdown in South Africa during his tenure. And also you can say that although South Africa has remained on the pivotal point, it's not because of the leadership of Zuma, but rather the power of South Africa.
And of course, then the man most likely to replace Zuma is Cyril Ramaphosa. What's the view on him around the continent? Is there much confidence that he might be a step up from Zuma?
I think so. There's a slight contradiction in when Cyril Ramaphosa is coming up. He has a rich history. Many expected him to succeed as a South African leader much earlier, given his COSATU and business empire that he built. But of course, the leadership delayed it. But I think that one has also to look that he's coming at a time that ANC is quite polarized and not a very dominant force in South Africa itself. So I think it's a mixed bag for him, and it will really take his personality to really meet the expectations that people have of South Africa.
Indeed. Well, thanks very much, Dr. Adam Zolo, for the Africa perspective on those developments in South Africa.